And as always, we like to say that this video is for training purposes only, that any students or data are not real students or data in this instance that you see, and any likeness to any real student is purely coincidental, as we do use a testing and pilot server with fake information all throughout. So this morning we wanted to give an opportunity to go through, because school is starting up for many, many districts this week and next. We have one district that started today, quite a few who start Thursday and Friday this week, and then the majority of the state starts next week. So what are those last minute things that were like, I know I forgot something, what might it be, so that everything is ready to do what you need to do come the first day of school? One of the things that we are going to utilize is this student information data systems data calendar, because I tried to put each of the steps that are the big moments that we need to pay attention to in PowerSchool as we go through. So as we talk through this, we are going to, if I need to update any documentation, we're going to make this live. This is a live document, and I'll keep sharing this throughout in the chat. Here is the link to this document, so that you can see we are down here in July. And I also want to call out that I have started swapping out the breadcrumbs if you have swapped over to the new UI. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about with the new UI, you can watch that webinar that we talked about yesterday where we showed that there is a new user interface. For this training, however, I am going to still stay in the old user interface, since the majority of districts have not made that swap over yet. But in the breadcrumbs, as you can see right here, I give you the old directions, and if you have swapped to the new UI, your new directions on how to get to each one of these items. I think I have a few more things I have to swap out on here, but I'll have it finished by the end of the day. So we're going to scroll down to July, and let's look at where we are kind of in the breadth of really getting ready for school. I know it's August 1, but these are all of the things that we should have taken care of last month to make sure that we're ready come the month of August for schools. I will say this. I've had a lot of new employees in districts email me to say, Stacy, hey, I'm a new counselor. I need to get on your email list. I need to change my email because I moved from this district to this. Couple of reminders I want to put out here is make sure that whoever's in charge of ed during your district is updating those staff roles, so that if you get new counselors, new attendance personnel, new PowerSchool people, new registrars, that you are adding them into the education director so they automatically end up on our email list. And that if you do have employees who have moved from one district into your district, remind them that they have to go into their AIM account and update their email address. That's not something you can do at the district level, and that's not something I can do at the state level, that each individual employee owns their AIM account, and they have to go into their account settings to update that. So just make sure that those two pieces of information have been communicated throughout your district. All right, so if you have had any changes, one of the things that you want to make sure is that you have denoted those changes in the actual server. A lot of people forget that when we first stood up PowerSchool, we did have to fill out under district setup, under schools and, whoops, went too far, schools and school info. Each school inside of your server has names associated with them of employees. And a lot of the formulas that are used in object reports, your transcripts, your report cards, those DAT tags actually pull from these fields instead of hard coding the principal's name, the superintendent's name, and so forth. So if you've had some change to principals, assistant principals, secretaries, registrars within your schools, it's going to be real important that you make sure you come into your schools right here and update these names, so that any report you have coded actually pulls the correct person's name over into that code. If you have hard coded those object reports, you want to make sure that you've updated those actual object reports. I really discourage hard coding if at all possible, so that we can use these fields so you're not having to update in multiple places inside of there. So that is one of our first things that is in our list of items to do for the summer, is to make sure that we have those school info items set. Also, currently we are in between school years. If your school year has not started yet, have you gone ahead and flipped the flag so that when you log into PowerSchool, you are automatically seeing the upcoming school year? A lot of people, at the end of school, change it back to previous school year, so it kind of stays stuck in last year, so teachers can't go over to the next year, or it automatically defaults to where we need to work. If you have not flipped that flag yet, It is located under district, and you scroll down to district information and miscellaneous. Here is that default term between school years. Now, there's actually two things that I want to show to districts right here. That's this setting and the one right below it, the default term level, because these are not only are they important on the admin side, but they're really important over on the teacher side because it drives that landing page of Power Teacher, not Power Teacher Pro where you're over in the grade book, but you know that landing page where they go to take their attendance on? A lot of times we get questions of, Stacy, it's second semester and my first semester teachers forgot to go back and, declare their career tech programs, or driver's ed teachers forgot to put the driver's ed score in. How do we get back to those kids because they have to use that little blue identification card? Well, this term level right here shows what teachers are allowed to see. So when it comes to what classes populate on that screen, do you want them to just see the classes they have first quarter, first semester, the entire year? This length right here that you choose is going to control what defaults when you first log in here. So you see how I have a year long in semesters, and I am at district office. But if I was at the schools, it might go all the way down to the quarter level. That controls your default on the admin, but it also controls the default on the teacher side. So decide as a district what is most important for you to populate for teachers and for yourself in that default term level. And then for default term between school years, because we are so close to the next school year populating, you probably want to push that over to next school year. Now, when you submit this page, it does not automatically take effect. So if you're like, ooh, I need to flip this over for teachers so they see the next school year now, and they can't, if you just hit submit, it will not happen until an overnight process takes place because that setting is not automatic. Now, if you want to work around, because I'm full of tips and tricks, if you need to change that setting right now and you cannot wait on the overnight update to occur, there is a little trick where if you go into district setup and go back to district information and schools and school info, just where we were a minute ago, and click on any school, does not matter which school, and you're not going to do anything. You're not going to change anything on this page, but you are going to come submit the page. That right there will trigger that setting to actually go live. Don't ask me how or why. I just know it works. So I'm passing that tidbit along. If you need to change that default term between years at any point in time during the school year, especially at the end of the school year, if it swapped on you too quickly and you need to change it back, that's a little tidbit of knowing how to make it active without waiting overnight for that change to take place. All right, let's get into the good stuff, because I know the reason that most people are in here is to make sure all of the settings for the schools are actually completely set up. So over here on this right-hand side is this confirmation, confirmed that the school setup is at each school. And remember, I make this as a workable document that you can come in here and make your own copy of, so that then you can come in here and do your check boxes and mark these out when you know you have confirmed these. So please, I invite you to make a copy of this so that you can utilize it. So we're just going to go down through this list and make sure we're looking at everything. So the first thing are years and terms. And this needs to be looked at the school level and at the district level. So I want to look here first at district office. Where do I find years and terms? Well, that's going to be under district setup. And it's going to be always, it's up at the top on here and the bottom of the schools. Here it is, under calendar, years and terms. Now, when you go to your years and terms at the district office, 99% of the districts look like this at district office. This is a problem. What does your largest school look like as far as tiers? Is probably your high school. Does your high school go down to semesters? Does your high school go down to quarters? However far you build your high school out, you need to build your district office out to that length as well. The reason is there are some reports and some pages when you try to print them out of here from district office, And it has, so let's say teacher schedules. This is a big one that certification will always send to districts and say, hey, I need you to send me from district office teacher XYZ's schedule so I can check them for teams or check them for certification or whatever it is. Let's say that's a high school teacher that teaches semester classes. Well, if you don't have semesters set up at district office, when you try to run that report, it's not going to print anything. And you're going to be emailing me going, Stacy, why is the report blank? Well, it's blank because you've not set up those terms. So you'll want to make sure that you go in here and set up any terms beyond the year. That was August 1st to 12/15 is my first semester. It's a half semester. Hit submit. Oh, it doesn't fall in the first year range. Hang on, that means I've got my dates a little off. Oh, 8/7. So I need to fix that one first because I should start on 8/1 in my setup. And this should be 7/31 because I've made some adjustments. And here's another thing. When you are doing your setup or when you created your terms, did you remember to come back in here so that you could place this import number inside of here? How many of you have ever tried to import a file and you think it's going to a certain academic year, but when you imported it, it went to something really crazy? Well, that's because you don't have your file term number inside of here. It won't import correctly and know which term ID to go to if those are not set. So for any year and term setup that you have done, ensure that you have, and if you've suppressed it for your parents for the summer, make sure you uncheck that. But make sure you should come back in and have that import file term inside of there. So now that I have my dates correct, I can come back in here and start setting up. And I'm just going to set up one just to show you my other years and terms. So 8/1 to 12/15. Cannot type today, y'all. It's a half semester, or it's a half year as a semester. And again, it's going to start tiering it out. And when I go back in there, notice I have a term ID, fill it back in and submit again. So please build out at your district office as far as you need to go for your schools. Each one of your schools should also have those years and terms set completely. So at a school level, to find years and terms, you're going to go to school setup. You're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. It's under scheduling for years and terms. And you're going to see your terms and how they're built out. Again, double check in all of your terms. So see right here, don't have that import number there. So every one of them, I need to double check. And yep, that's going to take you a little bit of time, but click on them. Anything that's missing, you've got to go fill those in or else it's not going to import correctly for you. And a lot of times this is a step that is very easily forgotten, especially if you use Power Scheduler and you push something over. It's not going to have them in there automatically if you didn't go back and enter them in there as well. And so we have to go through these steps. So that's our years and terms to make sure that they are complete. Now, one of the questions I get about years and terms are, because it's a little different from my final grade reporting term setup, is do I use the actual days on my school calendar or do I do that day after like we have to do for courses? When it comes to years and terms, you use the exact dates on your calendar. If you say school starts August 7th, then you put August 7th. If the last day of school for your students is May 25th, then you put in May 25th. Anytime you're setting up years and terms, you put the actual dates of your school calendar. When does semester end? When does whatever end? You put those actual dates. You don't allow for that allowance, okay? Because this is what's going to schedule the length of those courses. Periods. Periods do roll over and they are school specific. So whatever periods you had set up last year are going to be the periods that you have set up this year. So at this school right here, I'm going to go to school setup. I'm going to scroll down here to periods, and whatever you had is going to be in here. Now, if you're a district that said, hey, I need to add a new period because I'm going to add in a homeroom or I'm going to add in a whatever, and I've already committed the schedule. Notice one thing that you do not have on this page is an add button, because you don't add additional periods from here. Periods are actually controlled from within the years and terms. And I have a little video on the YouTube channel to show how to do this. But if for some reason, let's say I was a 6-period school going to a 7-period school, or I need another period because I'm going to schedule some stuff outside of the bell schedule and I need room to put it into a student schedule. The number of periods you get to have is controlled right here in the actual name of your years and terms. And so if you needed to increase or decrease the number of periods anywhere, this is where you would do it. Once you set the number of periods you can work with, then you can come down to the periods page, periods, and click on the name of whatever new period you needed and name it appropriately. So if you needed a new period called advisory, a new period called homeroom, a new period called 0 day, whatever it is you need, that's how you could then work with that. So really the only time you have to touch periods is if you are wanting to change up how you are doing periods in the school. Otherwise, they're going to roll from year to year and you are all good. The same goes for cycle days. So with cycle days, they are located right next to periods in that school setup. So notice here are my days. Again, I cannot add new ones from here because that's going to be done in that same area for the years and terms. But if you're renaming them, like if you're going from an A day to an AB day and you want to name it blue and white, red and black, orange and green, whatever it is, that's where you can name days inside of there. Remember that these cycle days are what becomes part of that expression that you see. So when a lot of you see 1A, that's period 1 on an A day. 1 red is period 1 on a red day. So you can alter those and adjust them if you want to. Bell schedules. Bell schedules are another thing that is going to roll over from last year. So if you need to make any changes in bell schedules, you can create new ones. You can adjust. One of the things with the new attendance update that we're getting is that you don't need that bridge period. So everybody's having to go in and take out that daily bridge period in there. But if you need to make any adjustments to your bell schedule, make sure that you have. One of the things that you need to double check in your bell schedule is that you do not have any gaps between these periods. I'm still seeing bell schedules inside of schools that are leaving transition time inside of there. That's going to miscalculate your minutes in the number of the day and it causes issues in check-ins and check-outs if you actually do it during that like gap area inside of there. So just double check each one of your bell schedules. Some people, well, not some people, most districts have multiple bell schedules inside of school because you might have specialty days. How many of you do half days for exams or half days for whatever, or maybe you have built-in late start dates for PD or something within your district? It's okay to go ahead and build out all of those, just as you would put in the types of times inside of there. Again, leave no gaps, and those each have to be associated to the calendar. So that's the actual next thing to go through and check. Do you have your calendar set up correctly? If this next step is not completed and your teachers come in on day 1 to take attendance, they're all going to be calling you because their little chair is not going to be there in their teacher record. So how do you make sure that that little chair is there so that they can take attendance on the first day of school? So if you are at the school level, there is this calendar set up. Here is what you need to check has been filled in. If it does not see a cycle day or bell schedule, you can't take attendance. You can't add students to a new section. I have some districts who have just now started working on their elementary schedules because they don't start until next week. And so they're now, they've got their teacher schedules right and they've got dependent sections set up. So all they need to do is take that homeroom roster and put them in there. And when they try to do it, it's going, it won't let me do a section enrollment. Why not? Well, when they come to their calendar setup, these are blank. When these are blank, the school is typically not in session right now. Even if you put in session, it doesn't know where in session because remember, attendance is tied to those actual sections. So you got to know which sections are activated and what type of bell schedule they are on. So the things that you must have within this calendar are cycle days, bell schedules, whether you're in session or not, membership value and type. You don't have to do all of this track stuff if you don't want to. I do it because I play with some stuff in here, but those 4 things. If you do have a holiday where it's a non-session day for students, remember this calendar is based on your student days. Because a lot of people say, Stacy, where does your 80A and 80M get calculated from? It's from this right here. It's how many in-session days you have for your students. So if you have 180 days, 179, 178, that's going to be that denominator for enrollment and for, membership and for attendance. Now, if you want to know if you have the right number of days set up very quickly, if you scroll to the bottom of this page, right here is a link that says verify number of school days in the current term. When you do that, you're going to see how many total days. So let me ask you this. Does everyone on this call know how many days are in your school calendar? I know majority of schools still run a 180-day calendar. So they would expect to see 180 days right here. Some run 178, 179, 177. You should see that number here. If you don't, if you see more or less, that means you've got something set up wrong on a date for a holiday possibly, or something's not marked in session. So you'll definitely want to double check each one of these to make sure that you have the correct number of days. And you can sit here and kind of look. Now notice, I run my pilot all year long, so I've got 262 days in here. You should see which one. And if you need to, you just go back to that calendar setup. And if you realize, oh, I didn't put Labor Day in there. Well, each one of these are months. So if I need to go and change something in September, then I'm going to click on the 9/23, means September 23, and whatever date. So if September 11th is Labor Day, then yeah, I just close this out, take that 0, uncheck these, and say it is a holiday. And over here in the notes, I can denote that it is Labor Day. Now, what will happen is when you look at a student's bell schedule, of their view of their schedule, it'll actually show that these are holidays within that bell schedule view, so that you know that attendance won't be taken inside of there. Well, what if you have lots of issues in your calendar? Or what if your calendar is not even set up at all? Is there a way that you can set this in mass? Yes. And you've got two things that you can do. You can do this at the school level, or you can do this at the district level. So let me show you where it's at the school level first, because calendar is probably the most important thing to get school started. So I'm going to scroll, I'm back in school setup. Notice that there's this automated calendar setup, and then there's calendar setup. Calendar setups, when you're going to do it manually, one day at a time. And yes, I've had to go and do that before. Automated calendar setup says, hey, PowerSchool, I want you to take, and let me flip this back to simple. I want you to take and build me a calendar based on these very simple rules. So if you are an elementary school where you are, a day all day long. So let's just pretend that said A all the way down, and regular all the way down, and everything's checked, and everything's a 1, and everything is in session. Then you could do that for Monday through Friday, hit submit, and give your beginning and end date of the school year, and it will go ahead and populate all those dates for you. And then all you have to do is go find your holidays within each of the months and back them out. Now, there is an advanced version of this, so that if you do something like this, an alternating day, and you need 10 days to get the whole pattern in there, you can give a little bit of pattern information. That's what I actually used for this Red Day, Black Day Passover, and had it go through, run the schedule, and then I went through and did my holidays and any adjusting that I had to do on there. So this can be done from the school level. Now, I will say this first date to be changed. Let's say school starts August 1st, and you figure out that your schedule's not right on August 10th for some reason, and you try to get it to go and refill the whole year again, it will not fill in backwards. It will only fill in on dates forward. So it's real important that if you want to do this in mass, that you do it before school starts, because once school starts, you can't use that first day of school or any days that have passed as part of that in mass push. So that's one way to do it at an individual school. Another way to do this from district office is through batch school setup. So at district, under district information is a batch school setup option. which up here at the top, you'll notice at district office, you have district calendars that you can create. You also have district bell schedules and district cycle days. Now, this can be a little bit misleading because you're not actually creating a cycle day or a bell schedule. You're just placing the names of cycle days and bell schedules that you might use at your schools. So when I look at my cycle days, I only have A listed. When I look at my bell schedules, I only have regular listed. And notice, it's not a bell schedule. It's just going to tag it to a bell schedule that it sees in the schools. You have to have those set up if you're going to create a calendar at district office and push it. So I have a 23-24 calendar with the beginning and end of school. And in my automated calendar setup, I said, hey, I want you to take this calendar right here, create it. So you hit submit, and it's going to create it over here at the district level. I'm going to go in, I'm going to put my holidays in there. And then I can say, push this calendar to which of these schools. So you can set a district calendar and then push it out to your school. So if you have 10 schools and they all have the same calendar, well, you can just push it on. Or if you have like 3 high schools, 3 middle schools, 3 primary schools, and they all use like all the primary use a calendar and the high schools use a different calendar because they rotate days. You can set up multiple calendars at district office and push to whichever subset of schools that you want to. So there's 2 different ways to do calendars. You can do it individually at a school level, or you can do it at a district level and push. Logan asks, is there a way to remove some terms that are not needed once they have been added under term setup? Logan, the way that that would have to be done is through DDA. There is actually a terms table, so you would need to, and that's why that term ID is going to be very important. Make sure that's in there because you can go to the terms table, find that term of that term ID, and then take it off if you no longer need to see that. Honestly, it does not hurt for it to be in there if you just have it, but if it's really bothering you and you want it gone, you can DDA and take it out. So calendar, bell schedule, cycle days, in-session days, that's going to get your first day of school going. Now, how many of you have thought about all of the grading stuff? Because some grading stuff pushes over, some does not. So first, let's talk about current grade display settings. And actually, I really need to change the order of this. I'm going to do this on the fly right here. I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to paste it here because you actually need that final grade reporting term set up before you do the grade, current grade, and quick lookup because that's the buckets. That's where you find out the buckets that you have to work with. Let me change that color real quick. So have you set up your buckets for the upcoming school year? You might have set up your years and terms, but I want you to pick one of your schools. So I'm going to go back to my high school. And I want you to go to school. I want you to scroll down under grading. And I want you to look for this final grade reporting term set up. Okay. Do you have little buckets right here, or do you just see the word new under there? If you just see the word new, that means you haven't set your buckets up. So there's basically nothing for teachers to start doing in their grade book yet. You need those buckets so that you can have formulas, so that you can flip, parent portal to be looking at a certain term, all of that. These do have to be created every year. Okay, there's no way to move these buckets from last year into this year. And again, there's 2 ways to create them. I can either create them here at the individual school and create it just for this school, or I can create it for one school and push them down into other schools through batch school setup. So if you just have the new button right here, you can click new and do your Q1, Q2, X1s, F2s, all of that information and populate to your heart's desire. Now, this is one of the things, and remember that you don't have to have that little plug-in anymore because it now comes natively in here. You need to watch your dates. I'm going to look at semester 2, for example. So I want you to look at just these 4 boxes right here. Remember that when you're dealing with dates and dealing with exams, you've got to back off your dates and that they should not overlap unless it's an all-encompassing bucket. So in other words, F buckets encompass all of the quarters and exams. So yes, you're going to have date overlaps there. Q3 and Q4 should not encompass any of each other. So you should not have any overlapping dates between Q3, Q4, Q1, Q2, etc. For an exam, you have to back off a couple of days at the end of the last bucket before you take the exam to account for days for that assignment to actually go in the grade book. If you don't do that and teachers end up putting in grades on those days thinking it's a quarter grade, it's going to count in both buckets and end up messing up averages. So notice right here, and yes, my Q4 runs all the way through the summer so we can keep training during the summer. My last day of Q4 is the 29th. Well, the last day of semester 2 is actually the 31st. So where's the 30th and 31st come in at? Well, that's where my exam days are in. So we give 2 days of dates to put assignments on for exams for them to stay inside of that bucket. So wholeheartedly take a look at your dates here and make sure you don't have overlap in individual lengths of terms. So you're going to check your year-long classes, make sure you don't have overlap except for Fs. Now, if you do some S1s and S2s to get semester grades out of a year-long class, you might say that S1 is encompassing F1, or excuse me, Q1 and Q2 and maybe an exam. That's perfectly okay. When you get down to your individual semester or quarter grades, they don't need to overlap. Now, if you're like, okay, Stacy, I've got 12 schools and I need to get this set up, how do I do it without having to go to every individual school? Well, let's go back to district office. And I'm going to go under setup to district. And I'm going to scroll down. Under district information is batch school setup. So there are actually quite a few things that you can push through batch school setup. One of them is your years and terms, which, you know, we create years and terms in like January because we're getting ready for scheduling in PowerScheduler. So you could have created those in January and pushed out to all of your schools if you wanted. You can push the calendar here just like we did from over there. But here is the reporting terms push. So I'm going to show you how you would go through and do it. You're going to click this run setup steps. Now I'm actually, you know, I don't need to do years and terms, so I'm just going to hit next. I don't need to do calendar as a push, so I'm going to hit next. And I'm going to be here to the reporting terms. First, you need to pick a school to edit at that you want to push. Now, it's a good possibility that you're going to have different reporting terms based on the kind of school. I know high school typically has more buckets than elementary school, and they're sometimes different than your middle school. So let's say I want to set up my buckets for my elementary schools. So maybe I've got these 6 schools right here, 3 primary, 3 intermediate, and they're all the same. They all have year-long classes, and they have a Q1, a Q2, a Q3, a Q4, and then a final grade, and that's it. Very simplistic setup. You can choose one school. Notice you get an edit reporting terms block right here. You can click edit reporting terms and it allows you to build out whatever terms you need in here or whatever buckets. So if you see this new, then all you have to do is go in here and click new, do your dates, create all of your buckets. Oops. And once you have this, so this is all I have right here. Somebody's been playing around a pilot, which is fine. That would be what I want to push to the rest of these. So when I save this, I can say, I want you to take this school and apply it to any schools down here in the list. Now, because I've already pushed to all of my schools, I don't see all of them as options. But if you didn't have it set up already, you would see your whole district and you can say, I want that one school pushed to all 6 schools, and you hit push reporting terms. So you can do it in fewer steps than having to go to every individual school. If you have 3 high schools and they all have, you know, quarter, semester, and year-long classes, and you all have those different buckets, you can set it up for one high school and push it to the other 2 high schools inside of here. So that's the second way to make sure your grading buckets are set up. And again, that's one thing that does not get set up automatically, and every district has to touch that setting. Heidi just asked, For breaks between semesters, do we do exact calendar dates, or is it okay to push out semester 1 to the day before semester 2 begins? Heidi, you can go either way with it. It really doesn't matter. Just remember, whatever dates you add in there are going to be the dates that drive those assignments that the teachers use. I'm a person who goes by strict calendar dates. And so I tell teachers, hey, if you enter in a grade on, December 29th and use the date December 29th, it's not going to count in anything because it's not allocated to a bucket. PowerSchool is extremely date driven. Some people do back theirs up because of that, and some, lock them out and say, hey, you've got to have them all done before Christmas. It just depends on your district. So you can go either way with that. So that is your final grade reporting term set up. Now, once you have the buckets, now you need to configure how admin, teachers, parents, students can see those buckets. We need that sort order. So there are current grade display settings and quick lookup preferences that you need to consider for each of your settings. So if I go to current grade display, I'm going to get out of this right here and cancel. I'm going to go to a school. And I'm going to go to school setup. And I'm going to scroll down here under grading. You see one of your links is current grade display. So read what this is used for. It's to calculate quick lookup from GPA for gradebook grades, and it's the default term for current gradebook grades when a term is not selected. So this is, how when your the parents get on their mobile app and they might say, hey, it's semester 2 and I'm still seeing semester 1 averages on my app. Why do I not see semester 2 or quarter 2? This is what drives what displays in those areas. So you probably have Q4 in this right now. You need to come in here for your schools and reset this to Q1 or F1, whatever it is you want them to look at. Typically, we swap it as we go through the quarter. So we start the school year off with everyone looking at Q1, and then when it swaps to Q2 after you've stored grades, you flip it over to Q2. And so you make yourself known that every time you store grades, you go and change this. And in fact, let me see if I put that on there for storing grades. So let me go to around October when we store grades. Yep, back up. Run honor roll, print. Let's see. Did I put on here to change that? I probably did not. Let's see. Oh, yep, I did right here. School, grading, current tape, and change it to the current term. So in your stored grades, so this calendar is really great because it's going to remind you, hey, these are things you need to go reset after you store so that you go look at the new term each time. So I've got those reminders in here for you. All right, let's go back up to July. So that's our current grade display settings. And again, that is by school. So you'll want to make sure that you have that set to the correct term. The next thing is your quick lookup preferences. So remember when you go to the quick lookup of a student and you see their attendance, you see their grades, and you see all the different buckets? Well, there's actually a sort order for that. So in school setup, there is, so we saw in grading current grade display, but up here in general, you see quick lookup preferences. By the way, these quick lookup preferences can also be pushed from district office in that batch school setup that I showed you earlier on the calendars and the final grade reporting terms. So what you want to do here is say, who can see these? So my buckets are Q1, Q2, X1s, Q3, Q4, X2, and F1s. Okay. I want students and parents to be able to see those buckets. I want teachers to be able to see them, and I want admin to be able to see them. But let's say you created a like holding bucket that you use for, I don't know, some people create buckets for GPAs that they want to use for different things that are not grades that go on any kind of report card, but they have different calculations on them. You can actually hide some of those buckets from parents so it doesn't confuse them if you do any kind of off the wall buckets, which it has the capability to do. You can choose whether that's a gradebook grade or a stored grade. So you want to start the school year with everything pointing to that teacher's gradebook and what's inside of there. After you store grades, you come back here and flip and go, okay, we have finished Q1. I now want those to look at what's in the stored grades, not what's in the teacher gradebook, and yada yada. Also, you want to sort them. How many of you, let me pop open a new tab and go to a student. For some of you, this drove you crazy. Y'all would email and go, oh, it's that I have to change. You know when you go to a quick lookup on a student? Someone pull up Mickey's quick lookup screen. How many of you, these were out of order? And you're like, why is F at the beginning? Or why is F in the middle? Why is it? And you couldn't figure out how to get them in the right order because you wanted to see Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and maybe X1, X2. Or I wanted to see my X1 here because it was a midterm grade and a Q4, however you want them. That's what this sort order is for. This right here tells this page which way you want these grades arranged in these columns. So quick lookup preferences, you need to check it by school, and you need to make sure that you have it either pushed here or pushed from the portal, the batch school setup over in district office. Why wouldn't my year term only over semester one bucket? I may need to send you an image via email. Heatherly, I don't know what you're saying in that one. Why wouldn't my year term only over semester one? You can send me an email, I can take a look, or if you want to clarify that, we can take a look at it. All right, let's go back to our checklist. Now, our next thing, traditional grade calculation formulas. These do have to be touched, but they can be pulled. It's not like you have to reset everything back up. If you go to, your final grade reporting term, or your traditional grade calculations, these are going to be found pushed from district office. So if you are a district that pushes grade calculations down, so I'm going to go to district, and I'm going to go to scroll into grading. You're going to go to Power Teacher Pro settings, traditional grade calculation formulas. Now, if you don't have any formulas in here, it will actually prompt you. If you didn't push them over at end of year, which you can, it's back on, if I go back to this setting right here, you see how it says manage next year calculations. You can actually do this ahead of time, or you can just pull them after the fact. I'm a pull them after the fact person. You'll be prompted with an alert that says, hey, your formulas haven't been promoted from last year. Do you want to push them over? To which you're going to say yes. And once you do, then any formulas you had last year will be here for you to use this year as well. So if you are a district that uses these formulas, you just want to go lay eyes again to make sure that all of your little check boxes are checked. So like for my year-long classes, I have 7 different reporting terms. I want to make sure all 7 are set. For my semester, I have 4 reporting terms. All 4 are set. So any that don't have full check boxes right there mean you need to set something on there. So you need to check that and see what's missing. Couple of other things to keep in mind. Do you want teachers to be able to edit those calculations? Like if you really are pushing this down for them, do you want them to be able to change these percentages? If no, flip this to no. On every one of these, click every one of these little pencils and flip that over to no. So right now I've got yes, teachers can edit that. Maybe I want them to be able to edit quarter grades, that they can do their own categories, but they can't do it on the F1 grades because it's locked down. You can choose what you lock down, what you don't lock down, and what schools these are applied to. Teresa said, can you repeat the steps to copy the traditional grades? It's not showing on here, Teresa, because I've already done it. But when you come to this page, it'll give you a pop-up that'll say, you haven't promoted your formulas from last year. Do you want to do so now? And you just basically go yes and go through the little wizard, and it will move those formulas over here for you. I was waiting on somebody to ask about orphan terms. So let's say that you have a term that you used last year, you're not going to use this year, and you've promoted it over. If you have one that says orphan terms, and I thought I had some orphan somewhere, you can just ignore them. It means absolutely nothing. It is not going to hurt anything. It's just saying, hey, this was in use at some point. Now it's not. Like if you create a bucket, throw a formula on it, and then decide you're going to move the bucket, don't need the bucket, and take it off, it's just going to be something that you ignore. So don't even let any orphan things down here bother you. So I'm going to say, of all of these big things that people forget to do, the two things are these with grades: making sure that you actually set your buckets up, and if you use formulas, that you have pushed those formulas down. Now, if you don't get that done by the first day of school, is it detrimental? No, it just means your teacher can't do anything in the grade book. But this formula pushing, if you don't push it down before you give teachers access to it, there is a possibility that they can go in there and create their own formulas and set stuff up already before you push it in, and that can cause some conflict. So I will say, be very, very cognizant of that and make sure that this at least gets done before your teachers have had access. If your teachers already have access and you realize, oh, I've not done that yet, let me push it down, do some scrounging, find out from teachers, hey, have y'all done anything in here? Maybe they've not been gung ho because they're trying to set up their classrooms right now. Make sure that if they have done anything, that it all gets like their stuff deleted out, your stuff put in, and any assignments they've already created gets realigned to any new categories that need to be done. And then the last thing that really is the big thing to make sure, and really it doesn't pay attention until like toward the end of the first quarter, is your locked reporting terms. Have you set your locked reporting terms up? And that can actually be done at district office in this same area of district setup and Power Teacher Pro settings. I can set it up for the whole district at one time. So in my instance, I have all of my grade books set to lock 3 days after the end of the quarter, and it's going to warn them 2 weeks ahead of time. So starting 2 weeks before I'm going to lock it, it's going to say, hey, your grade book's going to be locked. And it's 14 days from the lock date, not 14 days from the end of the quarter. It's 14 days of that locking. So keep that in mind. You can edit this, enable it, and you can copy it. So you can set it. So if you've got 50 schools in your district, you can set it for one and then hit copy and then choose what all schools you want that one set of settings to go to. So if I actually go back here and say, all right, I want to lock it 4 days after and warn them 14 days and hit copy, and I have all the schools selected and hit submit, it's going to say, hey, you want it copied to all the schools? I do. And now they're all updated to say 4. So if your schools are all the same, that can be done very quickly. So those are some of the really big things that you need to make sure that you have touched. As always, go through, and if you've and we'll talk some GPA stuff. We'll do some separate webinars that once school gets started, but make sure that you flipped your GPA year over, because we typically use class ranking and GPAs to look at a specific year. So be careful with that. Honor roll, that's the big one that uses a specific year to go in and do. Everything else is pretty much just making sure you've got your schedules in for your kids, because you do want to take attendance on that first day to see who your no-shows are. Start marking those. We do have webinars coming up about that. We also down here in August, so if it technically is August 1. And so if you wanted to watch the no-show video, it is there on YouTube. I'm putting new attendance videos on the attendance page on the PowerSchool channel that's going with the new update. They are finishing up everything right now, and our goal is to have that update in everybody this weekend. Stay tuned to emails coming out on that. But I'm going ahead and putting little 2-minute tutorials: how to check a student in, how to check a student out, how teachers take attendance and what it does for the admin, how to, I'm trying to go through everything. If you push attendance from discipline, here's what it's going to do. I'm showing every little thing inside of there. Jessica, I'll be sending this recording out as soon as we're finished with it and it renders. It usually takes a couple hours for it to do that. I'll throw it on YouTube. Remember, if y'all do subscribe to my YouTube channel, whenever I load a video on there, y'all get an email automatically that it's on there. Chesley, if a quarter ends on 10/13 and you want to lock it on 10/17 at midnight, the lock is set to 4 days after the term, right? 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, then yes, that will do that. Angie, where did you say you were putting this attendance information? on the Alabama PowerSchool page on the attendance block. So it takes you to that link right here. I'll throw it in chat right now. There's a link to it. And in fact, let me, because I haven't shared since maybe some new people come in, here's the link again to this document right here. I really hope that you find this document helpful and that you are using it as a checks and balances to make sure that you have not forgotten something in your school setup. So are there any other questions? Because those are the big things in making sure, you know, make sure your teachers are in there, make sure that they have their access inside of there. Hopefully everybody's gotten new employees in. Any other questions? I know some of y'all have some want to unmute and share screen. Let's get through the recording. When I stop the recording, we'll do that because I don't want to share anything on a recording that might get out of real student. Teresa, I've not copied over our traditional grade settings, but I'm not seeing the indicator for copying at the end if you have time. Yes, we will do that. Everyone feel good about school starting and where you're at. Remember that I'm here, the coaches are here, so if there's anything that you need, I know Monday, like literally 80% of the districts start on Monday. So I know that's going to be a big day. Robert, you have a question about changing a school name. So if you do have a name change now, and let's say it's just the school is named, you're not getting a new cost center. So if I go, actually, let me get out of that. You're going to go to district, schools and school info. As long as the school number didn't change, like if you're getting a brand new school that's got a new school number, like if, let's say I created a new middle school or I've got a new alternative school or a virtual school or whatever it is, then you hit new here. Please, please, please make sure you have the correct state school number. So if you've got a new, 0075 number, or you're creating your virtual school, which is 7004, you create that here. Remember, you then have to assign that thing to security to yourself so that you can actually access it in the drop down. But if your school is just changing names, like you're changing from Alabama Primary School 1 to Alabama Primary School 1.5, I don't know, whatever it is. Literally, you're just going to come in here and you're going to update the name right there. If the actual call center number has not changed, you just update it here. Keep in mind, this is the catch here. It changes everything. Like even if you go back 2 years ago and try to print something from this school, it's going to show this updated name. It's very much like a student record. We are always working in real time. Historical data on those schools are going to be in AIM, not necessarily in here. So that's how you would change the name of any school that did have a name change. So does that help you out, Robert? Perfect. What's the name of the YouTube subscription? So literally, if you go to YouTube, I'll show you how to find me. Just go to youtube.com and search Alabama PowerSchool. So view full playlist. And so right here, these are the 3 new ones, 6 days ago, 5 days ago, where you can see how to do it in the with the new attendance updates. And I've got more to add. Oh, did I hit my 1 hour mark? So did y'all hear me say to just go to YouTube and search Alabama PowerSchool, and that'll bring you to this channel right here. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop the recording and then I'll make it where y'all can unmute.